Good evening, I'm Jordan Spagnoli.
And I'm Josh Bartosik. Thanks for joining us for this special edition of the Center County Report on Election Night 2024. It's 8 o'clock and the polls are now officially closed here in Pennsylvania, but we have breaking news. Police in Bellefonte tell us they've cleared people out of the Center County Elections Office where vote counting is set to begin because multiple people were trying to disrupt the election. Our news crew has been moved to a nearby parking lot. More on this story as we get it. Across Pennsylvania today, voters cast their ballots in person at polling places. This video is from State College. Millions more mailed in their ballots ahead of Election Day. Turnout has been described as heavy in many areas. A software issue in Cambria County led to voting problems, and even though the scanner issue has been fixed, a court ordered polls to stay open there until 10 o'clock tonight.
And all eyes are on Pennsylvania tonight. It's an important swing state that might just be the deciding state for whoever wins the presidency. Pennsylvania is not only a key swing state in the presidential race, but some experts say PA could hold the key to the whole election.
But Pennsylvania, you have to stand up and you have to tell Kamala that you've had enough.
Trump not showing up, refused to be a part of a CNN debate, and clearly his staff has been saying he's exhausted, and the sad part about that is he's trying to be president of the United States.
Both Donald Trump and Kamala Harris targeted the state heavily in recent weeks. Recent polling has both candidates within just a few points of each other in the margin of error. Trump campaigned in State College at a late October rally.
We're going to end the looting and the pillaging of Pennsylvania. We will bring back our manufacturing jobs, our energy jobs, our coal jobs, our steel jobs, and we're going to bring back our dreams.
Kamala Harris has appeared across the state, including in Philadelphia.
The vast majority of us have so much more in common than what separates us. And I think that the American people deserve to have a president who is grounded in what is common sense, what is practical, and what is in the best interest of the people, not themselves.
Pennsylvania's election prize is 19 electoral votes up for grabs. Historically, those votes carry a heavy weight. 77% of the winners in the last 31 presidential elections have won PA, and in a close race like this year, every vote matters.
Back in 2022, there was a Republican primary for the U.S. Senate, and the difference between Dr. Oz and Dave McCormick, who was the runner-up and is now our Senate nominee, was a little over 900 votes. So if you think your vote doesn't matter, that's a very real, very recent example of where every single vote counts.
Pennsylvania's House Speaker, Joanna McClinton, says PA has played a critical role for many presidential elections.
Pennsylvania has decided every election for the last few election cycles. When we think about President Biden's victorious election in 2020, Pennsylvania was the keystone state. Our former President Trump's victory in 2016, Pennsylvania was the key, and our President Obama's victories in 2008 and 2012. As Pennsylvania goes, the nation goes.
After the candidates spent millions of dollars on ads here trying to convince voters, it's now in the hands of the voters. In State College, I'm Jordan Spagnoli for the Center County Report.
Back to our breaking news. Let's check in now with reporter Haley Jacobs. She's live at the Willowbank building in Bellefonte. Haley, what can you tell us about the situation there?
Jordan and Josh, good evening to you guys. We were just setting up here at the Willowbank building in Bellefonte, where police approached us and told us to evacuate the building immediately because, quote, people are attempting to disrupt the election. Now they've moved us down here to the lower parking lot. There are people over here standing, waiting, a lot of police presence in the area. And an election official told me that this is just a halt in tonight. They are planning to get things up and running smoothly, that they have it under control. But Bellefonte police choose not to comment on this right now. We will keep you updated on our socials, and we'll be back here at 9 for another live update. For now, reporting in Bellefonte, back to you guys.
Thanks, Haley. There are 11 races we're covering tonight in Center County, from president to state lawmakers. Reporter Thomas English shows you the political seats that voters are deciding.
At the top of the ticket is the close fight for president between Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump. The two have been visiting Pennsylvania often this election season because of its critical swing state status. One of our U.S. Senate seats is on the ballot. Democratic incumbent Bob Casey is trying for his fourth term, while Republican Dave McCormick hopes to unseat him and help his party regain Senate control. In the state attorney general race, Michelle Henry isn't running for another term, so Democrat Eugene DePasquale and Republican Dave Sunday face off. DePasquale served as Auditor General in the past, and Sunday was York County's district attorney. Incumbent Auditor General Tim DeFore, a Republican, is seeking a second term. His opponent is Democrat Malcolm Kenyatta. Democrat Aaron McClellan battles incumbent Republican Stacey Garrity for Pennsylvania Treasurer. Garrity was first elected in 2020 and is looking for a second term. In U.S. House District 15, longtime incumbent Republican Glenn Thompson hopes to win the same seat again. Democrat Zach Wilmer is his challenger. Republican Chris Dush seeks re-election after his first term in State Senate District 25. Democrat William McGill looks to replace him. In State Senate District 35, Republican incumbent Wayne Langerholz is running unopposed. He's been in office since 2016. Incumbent Democrat Scott Conklin aims to win re-election in State Legislative District 77. He's finishing his 18th year in office. Republican Marie Labrizzi is trying to unseat him. Democrat Paul Takak is going for re-election in State Legislative District 82. Republican Therese Holland is his opponent. And incumbent Kerry Benninghoff is running unopposed for re-election in State District 171. He's held the office since 1996. I'm Thomas English for the Center County Report.
Those are the races we're watching locally, but there are other key election stories across the state and nation tonight, as both major parties battle for control of the U.S. House and Senate. Governor seats are up for grabs, and officials are watching for any issues at polling places. Reporter Yaya Wan is live in the newsroom. Yaya, you'll be watching all of that tonight.
That's right, Josh. I'll be keeping an eye on video coming in from around the state and the nation. But first, a question of security: how ballots get from Pennsylvania precincts to election offices. Exact protocols vary by county. They can involve police escorts, sealed containers, and chain of custody documentation. In Philadelphia, for example, local law enforcement plays a direct role, collecting ballots after the polls close and taking them to election headquarters. In Allegheny County, poll workers will transport ballots in locked, sealed bags. And in Berks County, deputies monitor county drop boxes, then oversee the ballot pickup. Lots of security to protect the process. Live in the newsroom, I'm Yaya Wan. Back to you.
Thanks, Aya. There's been a lot of legal action related to this election here in PA. The U.S. Supreme Court has rejected an emergency appeal from Republicans that could have led to thousands of provisional ballots not being counted in Pennsylvania. The justices left in place a state Supreme Court ruling that election officials must count provisional ballots cast by voters whose mail-in ballots were rejected. Meantime, more than 4,000 mail-in ballot applications have been challenged across 14 Pennsylvania counties, leaving election officials to decide voters' eligibility during hearings that will extend well past Election Day.
People around the world are keeping an eye on tonight's U.S. election. One of those places is across the Atlantic in the U.K. We just sent a team of student journalists there recently to cover the aftermath of this summer's U.K. election and look at any similar issues with our own upcoming vote. We found many people closely watching the Harris-Trump race. Eric Morris reports.
On the streets of London and Edinburgh, most people will tell you they're keeping a close eye on the U.S. election.
I think it's like often the top news story every single day, which I actually kind of think is frustrating.
And it doesn't matter if they're older or younger.
I know about Project 2025, like we know about those things here, and we're like, okay, that's a terrible news for the climate and for all people all over the world, because what the U.S. does obviously impacts us.
For Europe, what happens in America matters.
400 million Europeans can't vote in the U.S. election, but it's still an election they have to really care about. And so that's why you're seeing as much coverage as you are.
Mark Landler is the London bureau chief of the New York Times.
Everyone in Europe understands that the outcome of the U.S. election will have direct consequences for them.
The British held their own major election in July, with the voters overwhelmingly tossing the conservative Tories out of office for the first time in 14 years, and giving the more liberal Labour Party a landslide win. But two political experts told us Labour received the lowest percentage of the vote for a winning party since the Second World War.
So there's a question there, really. Is it an election that Labour won, or is it an election that the Conservatives lost? And in many respects, it is an election that the Conservatives lost.
They went back to the Labour Party, but they went back to the Labour Party not really out of a great deal of enthusiasm, but just out of a sense of disappointment, and in some degree, real disappointment.
They say it's a part of a global anti-incumbent feeling by voters.
The big theme globally is kind of throw the bums out. That's what voters all over the world in many different countries, different political systems, there's this kind of general pent-up frustration.
It's a frustration many say is also building here at home. But after President Joe Biden dropped out of the race, that anti-incumbent flavor has a different taste in the U.S.
I think if Biden had not withdrawn when he did, the election in the U.S. would have shaped up as a much more straight anti-incumbent election. For Kamala Harris, you slightly remove the incumbent flavor from it.
Historically, the two nations have parallels with election results including Bill Clinton and Tony Blair in the 90s, as well as Donald Trump and Boris Johnson. So, what can we learn in 2024?
I think that the Democrats are trying to do some of the same things. And so to that extent, I think that the Labor victory gives them something of a blueprint.
The lesson? They promised voters they'd steer clear of the same mistakes the Conservatives made. In the United Kingdom, I'm Eric Morris for the Center County Report.
There's more ahead on this special edition of the Center County Report.
As we wait for results to come in, we talk with local voters as they head into the polls. Also coming up, young voters, can they really make a difference? It's a question both here in the U.S. and abroad. We'll take a look at the issue as our election night coverage continues.
When we first met Todd, he was singing a song, and I was like, wow, look at this kid with the biggest smile.
Todd's a joy.
Yes.
Todd's really is a great joy.
And you. Learn about adopting a teen at adoptuskids.org.
Eyes forward. Don't drive distracted.
Children are the greatest joy and our best hope for a better future. Friends, they are the future. But did you know that millions of kids are facing hunger every day? Food is not just food. It's energy, health, confidence, hope, and even love. Yes, love.
Thank you!
Learn more about how No Kid Hungry is helping end child hunger in America at helpnokidhungry.org.
Keep going,
Multiple studies have shown that marijuana can slow both driver reaction and response time, which can be really dangerous. He's here. He's here. Wait. What? I can't drive. Why? My. Oh.
It's been a busy day at polling places across Center County and the state. Many people say they're excited about the energy of voting in a presidential election. Reporter Declan Stablo has more on today's voting.
After months of campaigning, rallies, and debates, it's finally Election Day. The big race bringing out voters is, of course, the presidential ticket. Polls opened at 7 a.m. across the state, and polling places were busy throughout the day. We visited several in State College and talked with voters and volunteers.
This election is probably the most significant determining factor in how our country is going to progress in the next coming years, and probably in the future.
Outside the municipal building, borough council members handed out election information.
They may know the top of the ticket, but they don't know the local candidates, so this is just something we're giving out if people want it, to have a guidance on who's there in the rest of the ticket.
Central Pennsylvania has been front and center in this presidential race. It's drawn visits from Donald Trump, along with other political figures including Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Vivek Ramaswamy, and others. Pennsylvania is a key swing state, and some experts believe it could be the key to the entire outcome. Behind me, students and locals alike are already showing out to the polls. eager to do their part in determining our country's next president. Even voters from out of state are aware of the importance PA holds in this election.
Just doing a lot of research and talking to my friends about it, considering it's more of a swing state versus New York, I figured depending on who you're voting for, it matters more.
In State College, I'm Declan Stablo for the Center County Report.
And as the votes come in tonight, we invite you to watch our Center County Report social media channels for updates. You'll find us on X, Facebook, and Instagram.
Some people may not know this, but weather can have an effect on election voter turnout. Student meteorologist Sean Romeo is here with more.
Thank you, Jordan. You know, weather actually does have some impact on turnout. It can actually lower turnout in certain places. It doesn't usually have an overwhelming impact unless we're talking about a hurricane or something more impactful. But as for right now, what we're really looking at in terms of weather across the country that might matter, it's really these showers and thunderstorms that have been rolling through Wisconsin and Michigan, which obviously are two major swing states over the course of this election. Wisconsin, it was early morning where it sort of moved out to the north by now. Michigan, you have this line of thunderstorms, which is sort of rolling its way through the western half of the state. It's sliding towards the Detroit area. It shouldn't disrupt too much in terms of voting since polls are starting to close, but it could lower turnout in certain parts of the state, maybe western half especially. And county-wise, it really shouldn't have too big of a deal. Pennsylvania, quiet. Nothing going on in Pennsylvania all the way across the board. It's been a clear day. Very, very comfortable. Temperature-wise here in Pennsylvania, again, mid-60s, still 75, believe it or not, up in Erie, even at this hour. So it will cool off nicely, and then that will be how it goes tomorrow. Back to you, Jordan.
Thanks, Sean. Political campaigns spend a lot of time and money courting young voters, but that age group doesn't tend to vote in large enough numbers to turn an election. It's an issue both here in the U.S. and in the U.K. Reporter Olivia Dunn was part of our Penn State journalism team that traveled overseas recently. She has more on the question of young voters.
23-year-old Shania Odalawa says the UK government made empty promises to her generation.
If I do this course, if I do that, if I go to college, if I go to university, I'll get a good job. And it's like, we've done all this and there's nothing to show for it.
She's a recent university grad now earning her master's degree while working as a freelance writer. Yet she's still living at home with her family.
I thought I'd move out into my own flat when I left uni. I'm back in my childhood room that I share with my sister. And I have a job. A lot of people think it's due to unemployment, but people have jobs. There's no money to go anywhere.
Her feelings are not unique in the UK or the US. Same for voting. Despite her issues with Britain's previous Conservative-led government, Shania was absent from the polls in July when the UK voted to replace the Conservatives with the Labour Party after 14 years of control.
So did you end up voting in this election? No, I did not, which was very tough for me because I've always been one of those go out and vote, you're lazy, get out and vote kind of person, which I still do agree with because I feel like voting is the easiest way you can participate in a democracy. But I remember my friend said something which was stuck with me, is that you can't force people to participate in a system allegedly based on choice. And it really felt like there was no choice this election.
She's not alone. Turnout for young voters in the UK hit an all-time low in the 2019 election. And when the dust settles from this year's vote, the numbers are expected to be just as dismal. The US comparison looks similar. U.S. Census numbers show only about 30% of 18-year-olds registered to vote 2 years ago. And in big elections dating back decades, 18 to 24-year-old voter turnout is far below other age groups. Roger Mortimer, a political expert and professor at King's College, says in the UK, the lines between Labour and Conservative are fading, and so is the youth vote.
Some of them will have felt that none of the parties were really standing for what they believed in. A few of them obviously will have voted for Conservatives or other parties, but for most of them it was a choice. Do I really love the Labour Party? And I think generally the answer was no.
Ultimately leaves the question. Key data tells the same story. Sir John Curtis, professor of politics at Scotland's University of Strathclyde, reports 18 to 24-year-olds voted for the Labour Party 19% less than they did in 2019. The Conservatives, 10% less. Dissatisfied with both major parties, younger voters pivoted, specifically toward third parties like Reform UK, which was up 8% since 2019, the Green Party, up 14%, and Liberal Democrats, up 1%.
Because Labour was trying to chase more socially conservative Leave voters and try to increase its popularity in that group, there probably was a cost.
In Glasgow, 20-year-old Amy Catiles joined one of those independent parties. In fact, she ran for office in Glasgow East, representing the Green Party. She said the biggest appeal of the Greens to her and her age group is their stance on the environment.
It was fresh, it was new, it was people who actually listened to not just young people on what they believe about the environment, but environmentalists everywhere. And so I think that appeals to a lot of young people who, have the same views, but even on other issues, I think especially trans and LGBT rights is a big talking point among young people at the moment.
Rachel and Matthew are two prime examples of young voters straying away from the two-party norm. The college students in Glasgow each voted for independent parties. Fourth-year Matthew Carter voted out of protest.
So I just thought, what's closest to my ideals, but still a protest vote, because I was never going to vote for one of the big parties.
While second-year Rachel Henderson voted for the Greens.
I just kind of went in with the intentions of voting for not who I knew was going to win, but who I felt most comfortable having my name next to.
Deputy political editor for the Sunday Times of London, Harry York, is familiar with these independent parties. He's covered Reform UK, an independent right-wing party, and says voting independently is a growing trend for young voters.
I think there's a very real prospect that if the Labour Party don't get to grips with some of the key issues in this country, the salient issues on immigration and home ownership and house building, then you will see those fringe parties, I think more to the right, but potentially to the left, continue to grow in popularity.
Back in America, independent or third parties don't have nearly the traction they do in the UK. As London bureau chief for the New York Times, Mark Landler suggests, the US system is built differently.
In the level of parallels, you do have fundamentally a two-party system in each country, conservatives and Labor and Republicans and Democrats. But because this is a parliamentary system, you do have significant third and fourth parties, which don't exist in the United States.
U.S. presidential campaigns have made a big push to drive young voters to the polls. If they can, that younger demographic could help tip the scales. But results in the UK once again show that's a tough sell. In London and Glasgow, I'm Olivia Dunn for the Centre County Report.
Coming up next, more on tonight's election as we await the voting results. And as we go to break, a live look at the Penn Stater Hotel where Centre County election officials are counting votes tonight. Stay with us.
Hey there, I'm Lance Bass, and this is Chip. And if you're like me, your pets mean the world to you. And if disaster strikes, saving them is a priority. Learn how to keep your best friends safe at AmericanHumane.org.
I don't remember how it started.
Go to that.
Our back and forth. It always came back.
Dad!
You probably don't remember what you told me,
That was perfect.
but I heard every word.
With Julia's autism, loud sounds can be too much.
But she still loves to make music.
Yeah.
Play band.
Early screening for autism can make a lifetime of difference. Find out more at screenforautism.org.
Once again, let's take a look at the races we're following tonight in this Pennsylvania election. At the top of the ballot is the presidential race. Vice President Kamala Harris faces former President Donald Trump in what's been a very bitter and divisive battle. Both candidates have focused heavily on swing state Pennsylvania. In the Pennsylvania U.S. Senate race, Democrat Bob Casey is running for re-election, seeking his 4th term. On the Republican side is challenger Dave McCormick from Allegheny County. He lost a Senate primary race 2 years ago. This contest cost tens of millions of dollars and could help decide control of the Senate next year. And as we can see, Casey is currently in the lead right now, about 70%, with about almost 100,000 difference in vote leads.
Now let's take a look at some statewide offices in Harrisburg that are on the ballot tonight. In the state attorney general race, Democrat Eugene DePasquale and Republican Dave Sunday are facing off. DePasquale served as Auditor General in the past, and Sunday was York County's district attorney. Early on, the difference ahead for DePasquale by 89,000 votes. For State Auditor General incumbent Tim DeFore, a Republican, is seeking a 2nd term. His opponent is Democrat Malcolm Kenyatta. Kenyatta is from Philadelphia and has served as a state representative since 2019. DeFore is the first black Auditor General in state history. He is currently ahead by about 79,000 votes.
Turning to the state treasurer race, Democrat Aaron McClellan battles incumbent Republican Stacey Garrity. Garrity was first elected in 2020 and is looking for a 2nd term. And now, as we see here, McClellan is in the lead, about an 81,000 vote difference. Voters are also deciding a key congressional race in central Pennsylvania tonight. The 15th district covers much of north central Pennsylvania, including Center County. Longtime incumbent Republican Glenn Thompson hopes to win the same seat again. He's from Bellefonte and has been in Congress since 2008. Democrat Zach Womer is his challenger. He was the first person in his family to earn a college degree, and as you can see right now, Thompson again in the lead, not by too much, with about 542 votes of a difference.
Now let's turn to the state races, beginning with the Pennsylvania Senate and the 25th District. That includes parts of Center County plus Clinton, Cameron, Jefferson, Elk, Potter, and McKean counties. Republican Chris Dush seeks re-election after his 1st term. He's running against Democrat William McGill in this election. Early on, Chris Dush has the lead by about 348 votes. Now to the 35th Senate District, which includes parts of Center, Cambria, and Clearfield counties. Only Republican incumbent Wayne Langerholz from Cambria County is on the ballot, so he's the projected winner. He's been in office since 2016. Before that, he was an assistant district attorney in Cambria County and a township supervisor.
Now let's move to the state house races in central PA tonight. First is the 77th District. That includes parts of Center County, including the State College and Port Matilda areas. Incumbent Democrat Scott Conklin from Rush Township aims to win re-election here. He's finishing his 18th year in office. Republican Marie Labrizzi from Ferguson Township is trying to unseat him. Moving now to the 82nd District. That includes part of Center County north to the Snowshoe area. Democrat Paul Takak from College Township is going for re-election. Republican Therese Holen from Benner Township is his opponent. And finally, we look at the 171st District, which includes part of eastern Center County and down to the Lewistown area. Incumbent Kerry Benninghoff is running unopposed for re-election, so he's the projected winner. He's held the office since 1996.
Now a reminder that we'll be here throughout the night as election results come in. Join us at the top of every hour at 9, 10, and 11 for a live Center County Report update. You can also follow us for updates on our social media channels. We're on X, Facebook, and Instagram. That's all for this edition of the Center County Report.
We'll see you back here at 9 for our next live update. Okay, we did that.
After the whistle starts in Patton, and it starts